Welcome to the comic zone.
What's going on, nerds? This is the Comic Zone. Over there we got Bill, of course.
What up, y'all?
Today we're going to talk about a comic series that's been running, 2-3 years?
I think 2017 or for a while. I'm gonna have to double check that, find that date.
Right. And yeah, we should check that here. But it's now being talked about as being, a Netflix series?
So they're made progress on making it a Netflix series. Of course, we're talking Something is Killing the Children by James Tinian the fourth.
Yep. And along with that, House of Slaughter, that just is an extension of the story. So
it's become its own world within itself and its own culture and myth. And I think that's some of the stuff I'm excited to talk about.
It was extremely popular just from the jump too. So first copies, print copies are worth a lot of money. Like the first, for the first issue. I mean, and I think I have an 8th print, and it was still, when I bought it, fucking $30 or $40 or something.
So I'm going to say something that may or may not be true, but I think it's something to watch. Those comics right now are a potential investment.
Oh, yeah. Especially if you have first prints.
I think the comic market has taken a dip lately, so I think there's a little bit risky. Compared to COVID, I think there's a lot of money, and I think that drove the price of comics up. Especially this one, because this is interesting because it is a very modern comic. It's a new comic that has such a high demand that, a 9.8 was graded at a 9.8. Number one first print was around $1,700.
That's crazy.
Now, I went on eBay and looked at recent sold, and some of those are going for $700, $800 for a 9.8. For a first
the only reason the 9.8, because those are raws, right?
No, those are graded.
The ones on eBay?
Yeah. So I'm saying right now it is a potential endpoint for if you're looking for a long-term investment comic.
Right.
I know I'm not an advisor. I've lost more money than I've made in comics. So take that for what you're with. But as far as it's something to watch. Now, they're made I don't think it's necessarily a flip, but
even before it was talked about being a show, I mean, I think fans of the series were talking about it a lot.
It is great, well-written comic.
But even before that, it's it was just sought after in a big way, and and that just shows in how many times they reprinted the first issue.
Yeah.
I mean, and that was within a year that they had reprinted it so many times or something.
Quite a few.
So I would imagine, that the first prints are going to be worth quite a bit, probably even more than a Berserker first print.
Well, I think really, as far as an investment, it all depends on how well they execute this new series. And I think this is also something we really want to talk about. And I know you've had questions about how well they can pull this off on the television screen.
Well, yeah, because look at what
it's fucking brutal.
And that's okay, and that's fine and dandy. You could, if it's too much for Netflix, then they could move it over to HBO or whatever.
It's already slated for Netflix. That's where the directors are going.
That's fine.
So that's what we can assume is going to happen.
Okay, so does that mean they're gonna water down the gore? And then also, a lot of the gore is very young kids being fucking brutally murdered. So I don't see how they changed that other than just making everybody teenagers.
I think that's a good possibility.
That's what'll happen. They're not going to be, because I mean, let's be honest, nobody wants to watch little kids get slaughtered. But
and at the same time, it's not totally unprecedented. If you look at the Hunger Games, those movies, they did have children dying. It wasn't very brutal.
It's not the same.
And I think, and then there's also ways that I think it can be very suspenseful and not pull punches, but just show less. I mean, I think a lot of the mayhem.
Have the kids die off screen.
Yeah, exactly. The mayhem. I mean, and again, this is pulling punches. This is, or watering down.
Okay, yeah,
And I
okay. So
think
you
there's
could
gonna-
have
I
the
think-
younger kids die off screen, and then
But even
You
in,
can- to
even
get
in
your
the
gore.
even in the comic, the first few kind of issues, it wasn't ultra violent. I think the most it kind of did happen off screen for a lot of it. But you got the blood spatter, but then you got gruesome piles of bodies and piles of kids. You couldn't tell it was directly kids, but you knew that that's what it was. I think the most impactful thing in the comic, and that is
so they'll probably do a lot of the same thing
and spoiler.
in the show.
In one of the issues, the girl is the townspeople watch this girl lifted up out of the air and torn
Yeah.
in half.
Yeah,
The adults can't see the monsters, only the kids can. So they're all watching this invisible thing to pick her up, and
yeah, rip her asunder.
yeah, I mean, that's how brutal it is.
Yeah, it is so that's what I mean. Is like, it's gonna be definitely less brutal than the comic, or at least when it comes to like little kids dying. I
And I
mean, you
think it
might
has
see
to.
older kids.
But even like the boys, some of the more impactful, it still kind of cuts down on what the comic is, or even Invincible.
Yeah.
They still.
Well, I don't
As
know about
brutal as-
Invincible. Invincible was still.
I've read only the first probably a few graphic novels, not until it got intense yet. but-
Yeah, it's.
so I
about
guess
the
I
same.
can't say.
I mean, because look at the first episode of Invincible when he like takes out all the Guardians of the Globe. Was that the name?
Yeah,
That's good. I remembered that. That dude, I've seen that part of that show so many times. It's like one of the coolest fight
I need
scenes
to
ever
rewatch that.
because it's so accurate. And I don't mean to get off topic from this, but like it's so accurate to how a fight would go if Superman flipped out and started to take out the rest of the Justice League. And the way he kills the Batman guys, the dude like tries to jump in with a kick and he just grabs his leg and like splatters him on the fucking ground. That's how it would really go if Superman wanted to kill Batman. Like, and that's what I loved the most about that was that you got to see how Batman would really go down.
So how also as far as like being realistic in that way, I think Tinian is great in how he uses dialogue. I think especially if you look at the first 15 books is kind of when you deal with the first monster. People feel real. How they interact with each other. It isn't one voice kind of being both people. You can feel them. There's so many different emotions and layers going on that are authentic. And that is what makes this. I know there's one we've been
think
talking about having a podcast about comics that are literature, and this definitely is one of them.
Well, and the comics that make it turn into good shows, it's like you were just saying, the characters are so much different and they don't seem like this one person trying to write other people. Like these are really well hashed out. They all have their own personalities and this and that. Same thing with The Walking Dead. That is really what made that show
yeah.
popular, is like the well-written, diverse cast and characters that that show was less about zombies than it was about the people.
Absolutely. I've never read the comics and I've only gotten so far in the TV
And it's the
show.
same in the comics too. I mean, it's the people, like actual like people are more dangerous than like hordes of zombies when it comes down to it. Because they are malicious. The zombies are just doing
They're predictable.
They're instinct. It's an instinct, and they're predictable. But human beings are always the biggest threat, and that's really what that show's about. And
like the people that you let in that end up hurting you.
and you see that in The Last of Us too. Is like
I haven't seen the
you haven't
last
seen it?
episode.
Yeah, it's kind of. Oh, I haven't seen the newest one, but
So
that show's similar. But as far as you're saying, like just the having well hashed out characters and when things seem real, is that's when it's easy to picture it as a TV show, because then you start going, oh, who would play this person and who would play this person, and like you try to match up personalities or somebody that would be able to pull that personality off.
And I think the directors have a great blueprint if they follow it. I think that's the danger, is they have to follow it so much, and where are they going to pull stuff in? I'm seeing them
For
stick
something
pretty
like-
for Something Is Killing the Children, sticking pretty close to the original 15 stories. This is the in
For the first-
Archerville. No.
Yeah, for the first season.
The
Just
first season
stick-
is like the first 3 trade paperback or
Yeah.
the first 15.
Well, that's what we're
comics.
hoping, right?
Yeah, I mean, as far as that makes sense.
That does make sense.
And as far as like 9 episodes, how much content it would need, you could also pull in a lot of the other myth and origin stories here or there as flashbacks.
I think
mixed
what
in.
they would do is like you would get. Do you think they would save House of Slaughter for like a later series if it works out, or do you think they would mix in that House of Slaughter, just like snippets of House of Slaughter within Something Is Killing the Children? Do you think you'll?
I think it all depends on how much screen time it takes to tell the story, the base story. I think, like, I binged read the first 20 comics over 3 days.
Well, here's the thing: is I don't.
It's that easy. It's that good. There's the so as far as the action, how long it takes, I don't think they need to if they do it right. But then they have the risk of just being too just long-winded in the story. And these directors,
Depends on how many episodes you have in a season.
true, and like how big of a piece are they going to pick?
It's like maybe you do 6 or 7 episodes, like most shit now, and then you cover those 15 books within that, and that would be doable. And like you said, it wouldn't be too long-winded.
And if they needed to throw in bits and pieces, they've got enough
from
bonus
other shit.
material.
But then you don't want to dip too much into the later stuff, because
They
then
might need
then
to.
you fuck yourself on a second season almost.
Well, I think they could to use it to like bridge a gap in like a plot hole.
Right.
So if they're like skipping, let's say they're skipping these few parts in the book or a whole character, they're using, like Aaron, one of the guys, to kind of bridge that gap with some of the backstory.
He's who I was picturing. Is like, so he is, I think, somewhat of an interesting character. I liked him for some reason. And to see him die so quickly, spoiler button. To see him die so quickly within the first 15 books, it was just like, what a waste. But then
It did feel that way. It was, there was so much undeveloped character there.
Mhm.
And as far as is the first 15, that's, I think, one of the biggest disappointments. But again, we start seeing them again afterwards.
yeah, and House of Slaughter, and that's what I meant. Is
Or
like,
even
do you think,
the next 15, when it flashes back, as it goes into Erica Slaughter's origin story.
well, and that's what I was wondering. Do you think they'll have an episode where they go do a flashback episode and it shows some of the House of Slaughter stuff, so you get a little more history on him before he dies so quickly? Like, and they
Yeah.
kind of change that a little bit, so you that kind of stuff doesn't. But also, you have shows like Game of Thrones and shit where people die. They seem very interesting, and you think they'll be like a long-standing character, and then they're dead, like an episode later, and you're like, "What the fuck?"
So the show that these directors did was called on Netflix Dark. And I don't know much about
The
it.
people that are gonna do
Doing Something Is Killing the Children. And they also did a show, 1899. It's kind of like a Bermuda Triangle sci-fi thing. I know who they are. I cannot say their names, and I'm not even going to try because I think they're German. and my internet's not pulling up. But so I think they're also appealing to the world market, not just America. I think they're trying to get some of these other foreign markets listener or viewers as well.
Well, they saw the success of something like Squid Game, so like that was made obviously in what was it, South Korea?
Yeah, that was a little kind of different.
But it was like a world. Everybody in the world was watching that show.
Yeah.
Is my point. That wasn't just here in America. Like everywhere, that was popular. So they probably saw the success of that, and they hope to do accomplish the same thing.
So one show that Netflix did well in the same kind of genre, which was the Lock and Key. And I think they could, if they kind of echoed the same feel of Lock and Key, I would be super happy.
Was Squid Game a comic before it was a show, or like a manga or something?
I don't know.
Show idea.
I've heard a lot of stuff about it, but I'd have to kind of look it up. That it wasn't 100%.
I feel like if it wasn't
100% original. That a lot of there was kind of a reskin on certain levels, but I don't know. I'd have to look that up.
Did you like that show?
Yeah, it was entertaining, and
that's another example of That's another example of something that was like in a horrific. But there weren't kids dying. That's the whole thing about this. It's the only thing that makes it difficult is the dying kids and how to make it. Because it's supposed to be gory, and that's like one of the things.
And that's why it's so horrific,
right?
I mean, and that's why it's so. Oh my God!
How are you going to accomplish that? Oh my God! When you don't get to see, it's like, yeah, a lot of the kids and shit die off screen, or like you see it in silhouette or whatever. But like you said, that girl when she gets picked up and ripped in half. They show that shit.
Yeah.
So it's like, obviously, if they do that scene, they're going to show her float up into the air, and then like it'll start to pull her apart, and then it'll like flash to everybody's faces, and they'll be like, ah, or something like that. You know, They won't like.
It won't be something that'll be off. And I think it's going to be a blend of, like you said, making him a little bit older, having a little bit more of the after fact, or you can just cut away to a big shot and hearing screaming sounds.
Right.
So we're going to see a lot of that. And then maybe we're going to be surprised where they're going to not pull the punches and just go in like Tyson.
Right. Because look at movies like the remake of It. And you know, at the beginning when, was his name Charlie? The kid that dies at the beginning of it. Well, in the new one, it like... Do you know how it goes though? Like the kid's chasing his little boat down the gutter because it's raining, and that it goes into the sewer, and that's when he gets pulled in and killed by the monster.
I didn't.
But in the new movie, it actually shows it like he tries to reach in, and it like comes out and like latches on to his shoulder. You see it actually like bite into this, and he's like a 7 or 8 year old kid, like a young kid, and it shows it bite a whole chunk out of him, and like actually shows him like trying to crawl up the street with like half his shoulder and everything missing, and it's super brutal. Yeah. Like, so I wonder if you'll get like shit like that because they didn't pull their punches there, and that we
don't know. I mean, I think we're just gonna have to wait and see and kind of hope that they keep true enough to the story. I think let's stop for a moment and go back and look at these monsters.
Okay.
And just kind of how horrific this is, like especially if you look at it from the point of view as a child. So there's a couple types of monsters throughout, but the first kind they call them Oscura types. And the more scared you are, the more powerful they get. They become alive because you believe that they're alive,
and that's exactly what the It monster is.
Mm-hmm. I mean, so and what it's called philosophically is a tulpa, And that is when you believe enough in this idea that it actually manifests into a real kind of physical object.
And by the way,
or
the
idea.
more people that are believing in it, the stronger it gets, and then eventually it's permanent and you can see it. Right? Like eventually anybody can see it after enough people like believe it, or no?
That's Department of Truth. But not so these monsters, no. Only kids can see them. Now
They do get more powerful the longer
more,
they're around and shit though.
Yeah, so they do
Because
get
that's why they have to trap them in like the doll or whatever.
Yeah.
Or whatever they can trap them in, because they do that too, right?
Yeah, later.
you
But I
can't-
think going back to the kind of the monster, why they're horrific is because as a kid, it's like that monster underneath the bed. It's like, oh no, that doesn't exist. But the more he believes in it, the more he fears it, the more it actually becomes.
And imagine that.
And then it actually killing the people you love in front of you.
Well, imagine that. Like being a kid and how scared of the dark and scared of those kinds of things you were, and then imagine
It's real.
you do see this monster and your parents walk in and go, "There's nothing in here. Go to sleep." And there's literally like it's standing like right over your bed, and you're like,
Because they can't see it.
and they can't see it.
Yeah.
Like imagine that kind of terror is like,
And that just
oh, they
makes it-
can't help me.
Yeah.
Like no, like they can't even see it. Like
And in the beginning, in the first chapter, we get introduced to the character James, who I think is very much kind of a mirror of the author James Tinian, if I'm even saying his name right. But he watches his best friends and also kind of partners that he's interested in, die in front of him, and he's helpless to save them.
mm-hmm.
And he, as he goes along, he's realizing that he helped create this monster because he believed in it and because he told the story. Because he started telling about it, it became alive and
it was
killed
supposed to
people.
be like they did it at like a sleepover or something,
Mhm.
right? And he was like telling his buddies,
They're playing Truth or Dare.
and he was telling a scary story.
He said, "Yeah,
Like with the
where's the
flashlight.
scariest? What is the most scared you've ever been?"
And he was supposedly telling like a bullshit story,
Yeah.
like he made it up,
He made it up.
and it was about him being in his house alone, and then he like saw this and like it was all this whole thing, and then it starts to like actually happen in the house that they're in.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So just the idea, and I think it just echoes kind of this bigger world that we live in now of this digital social media age of what we believe in, that people, we're flat earthers, that if there's enough people that just believe, have that same belief, they have this platform where it's real and it's real amongst these people. It's no longer the facts. It's these ideas that take a life of their own, politically or ideologically, or even some ways kind of like what people call cancel culture, or even kind of it becomes its own living entity, whether it is real or not. And you're no longer, how can you disprove something that's not real with something that is real?
But this is a little different because this is like, it doesn't matter if you believe in the monsters or not. Like the parents can't see the monster that rips the little girl to pieces, but it still happens in reality.
and
It's like you can believe SpongeBob is real and maybe that makes your life better because you believe that, whatever, but it doesn't mean he's actually manifested in reality. This is
And
like a little
my point was more about being the idea of a tulpa in this fiction mirrored to what's reality now.
right.
And also a tulpa is just a great writing utensil to bring whatever you want to manifest into real world.
Yeah, you could do that with more than just monsters for sure. And that's what you're talking about with Department of Truth.
So in that,
It's a
that's
lit-
another,
They do a lot more with it.
and that goes into like the more conspiracy theory, kind of, but it's a similar idea. I think overall, especially this one is much more well written, put together as far as how long it's been out.
It's a little more simple though too.
It is.
A lot. It's
And-
the same. It's a similar idea with a more simple concept. Like
And the characters are what pull it. I mean, and how he writes and kind of weaves this story, and the art. I don't remember the artist's name, but it's it's beautiful as well, and horrific.
Mm-hmm.
And how they both tell the story. The action scenes are told by the artist, and they're very dramatic, high impact, great colors.
Just the covers, man. Some of the covers to these books are amazing.
They should be on walls of museums. You know,
Some of them
they're
are really, really great, like exceptional, for sure. Just her aesthetic. So the main chick, what's her name?
Erica Slaughter.
Okay, so just her aesthetic, the way they designed her character, it's just so, and it puts off of like the right vibes for who she is, like
Mysterious and still cool.
Well, right, and if hopefully they find the right person to play her that can carry herself in the right way, because she can't be like, you get what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, she's gonna have to be able to carry herself in a very particular way, and just like excuse me, Jonathan Matthews, or who's playing Kang?
Oh, Majors
Matthews, what the fuck? Jonathan just
Was
like
that
how
grumpy
he
old men? No.
just like how he carried himself just in the right way to put off the proper air to be somebody like Kang the Conqueror.
That machismo.
It's not like the same, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So they're gonna have to find somebody who is slight, because she's not like a big person either. So she'll be a small, she'll be
petite badass.
Yeah, but petite badass. That's a good way to describe it.
I mean, similar to, like, you know, Scarlett Johansson, Black Widow kind of persona.
Yes. Yeah, a lot.
I think
like
that's a good comparison as far as just.
But a little different, because she's not like trying to.
This is a whole other world.
And also, by the way, she's only like 16 or something, right? Or is she 18?
I don't know if they say.
I think she's pretty young still. She's not like in her 20s or anything. She might be.
It hasn't said. She was inducted, I think, around 12, or when she first became into the House of Slaughter. Was, I think, around in the early. It was definitely the early teen age range, from 10 to 12.
Sorry.
So did you know the Order of St. James was kind of the cult kind of group behind it?
And this is so you have different houses.
So before this comes from a real story, a real myth from Christianity.
Right. Okay. So, but you have different houses that comprise one overarching order, right? Kind of like the different houses of Hogwarts, almost, right?
We don't know.
They all specialize in a different type of monster hunting.
There's the different masks.
Yeah, but they're different.
But there's different houses too. We've only seen 2 houses.
I think they specialize in different talents.
That's the silver masks, and then the emerald masks.
Aren't the silver ones supposed to be the most dangerous?
They're specialized. They're also known for, like, the vampire hunters or the werewolf hunters.
That's what I mean.
So they specialize. Each one of them is specialized in their own. And then there's the emerald, who go after dragons, and then the white masks are the pack hunters and also the arrogant assholes of the groups.
And the
black masks are the lone wolf hunters.
And Erica
she's a black mask.
Yep.
And then there's
and they're the solo guys.
They're like kind of lone wolves that go the one-man job, Swiss Army knife that goes in and gets shit done and gets out.
Yeah, they're badass.
Mm-hmm. And she definitely is, even if you get into.
She's probably the best of them, for damn sure. She's
unique in how she became part of the House of Slaughter too. Most of them were kind of groomed and picked into it. She
was adopted in,
and they called her
because she was special in the way that she watched a monster kill everybody she knew, and then she went and got a weapon and killed it. Mm-hmm. Like, she didn't cower away. She went and killed the motherfucker.
And back to the mask, the scarlet masks are the silver, or the red ones are servants, or just kind of keep track and are bookkeepers, and then the storytellers and document everything that happens. Azure, the blue masks, are the blacksmiths and the weapon makers. But in the modern age, they've gone more in kind of the IT and the hacking. So that's what they've kind of disclosed so far about the different masks. They've said there's other houses, and I think in the newest series, we get a different house who is a woman who is coming after Erica Slaughter. So that's kind of what's happening
Coming after her to kill her?
and destroy her reputation in any way possible. Probably
you don't know
destroy her. Well, this is what's happening right now. And like the last issue I haven't read yet came out just a week or two ago. And that's what's happening right now.
I think this will have like...
And though that has a new monster that looks human, that's taking humanoid shape, and it can choose to be seen by adults.
But you talked about like vampires and like, so even vampires and like
dragons
and yeah, all kinds of different like beasts and monsters and what have you. I mean, so one that manifests in human form that doesn't, I mean that, and that's even scarier because
exactly.
Yeah.
And it has like a mouth that opens up, and inside the mouth is a giant eyeball.
Wow. So it's like a Resident Evil bad guy.
Maybe. Haven't seen too much Resident Evil.
You always got that kind of weird shit where the body like splits open and then it's like...
Maybe.
You know.
But it's like, yeah.
I mean, so let's say they don't stick with doing, like we were saying, the first 15 books in a whole season. Maybe they cover that in the first episode or two. How pissed would you be if they did it in just the first episode? And they covered all of that in 1 or 2 episodes, and then they got straight into the stuff after. But would they be shooting themselves in the foot? Because if they did that, they would almost have to do, like we were saying, the first 15 in the first season, and then give the series more time to come out.
I'm more afraid they're going to do the opposite and have really long, slow, drawn out pan shots, zooms in, and trying to really build on the suspense. And they're going to wait too long, and it's going to be a little bit, and it's going to fall flat.
Yeah, they
for like that American audience. That's what I've seen in one of his other films that came out. I've only watched one episode, granted. It was like the 1899. I'm going to need to look that up, but I think that's more of my concern of where
it's them taking too long.
That they're gonna,
and then you lose that character development.
Mm-hmm.
You don't lose it, but it takes too long, and people lose interest because they're like,
and really some of these scenes in the comic really only take 1 or 2 pages as far as like the dialogue goes. That on screen time couldn't be more than 15 seconds.
That's what I mean. Is like you could maybe do those 15 books in an episode or 2, and then.
But then they'd have.
Then you're getting into the stuff after. But you could do. But then, like, how many House of Slaughter books are out right now? They got to be up to like,
I think
into 10 or 15.
Yeah, or somewhere around there.
So what if then? They do a season of, the stuff after she's done there and you get her origin stuff. And then you do a season of House of Slaughter. Or maybe that's when you spin off a show and do House of Slaughter. But then that show would fall on its face because...
Well, it's not as well written. I think they need to take the best part.
I think he's not as intriguing as she is. That's... like... There's
been 2 parts of the House of Slaughter. The first was been kind of like the love story between Aaron and it's a Butcher, and then the next part is this guy who's going on.
Is he gay? Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I figured.
And then the other interesting thing is we learned that you can change houses, change masks. You can go from, because he was a white mask and then went into a black mask or something like that. So we've learned that.
Well, he just
And then
his
there's
whole thing was just about getting bullied all the time.
because they're all psycho. Those white masks are psychopaths.
Those two girls that were
Yeah.
like, yeah, but that's how they tested each other.
That's how they pushed each other to be brutal monster hunters.
Well,
As,
and
as
that's
the
the
old
thing.
dragon said, even to Erica at the end, or when she was being introduced, is that you have to be a monster to kill monsters.
Definitely.
So that's
No, you definitely do. And that's kind of the odd thing about Aaron and why he was kind of intriguing is because he's not a monster in any like he's not a badass in any way. He like yeah, Erica is more badass than doesn't she end up fighting those two twins too? Or the two fucked up ones that were fucking with Aaron? Or she fights a couple of white masks, like a team of them, right?
I mean, there's a few different times that, I mean, well, she doesn't really fight. She kind of defends and gets attacked. And then, and then,
I can't remember. Yeah, like at some point, I thought they sent.
so now it just depends on where you're talking about. If we're kind of sticking to the original kind of first storyline, there was a time when, Cecilia comes into town. She's like the big badass bitch, you know, the one who steals all the Dalmatian puppies, Cruella DeVille, kind of evil, and tries to get the kids to kind of start to cover up. When she comes to town, they get kind of kidnapped by her, and there's the cop, is Richardson. He's like one of the detectives, and he's protecting the girl. That the monster is hunting.
Oh, I think I remember that. And
then he gets his neck cut, and is bleeding out. He's like, "Fuck you, bitch!"
Yeah.
And that allows Erica and this other girl to escape into the woods.
I remember now.
So there's two kids that are the monster is kind of like their origin, or kind of they know the smell of them, they know who they are, so they're attracted to these kids, and they're being used as bait, knowingly used as bait.
Yeah, she tells him
Straight up.
at one point. Yeah,
It's like
and that one girl's down with it though. She's like, okay,
and we're just like you're trying, because there's the mother.
or no, it was the kid. Isn't that the
That's
the
James.
end of the kid that thinks he started it all by telling the story.
Exactly.
He's down with like helping her take it out.
And at the end, he's
And
so grateful to her for allowing that, because that was the only thing he could do after. That gave him the only sense of closure that he got out of that situation.
But they didn't like adopt him into the order though. Did
No,
they?
he went on to do his own thing.
Yeah. I remember. Yeah, that was a good. Okay, so that if anything, whether the show is received well after the first season, at the very least, if they do that whole, the first 15 books in like 6 or episodes or whatever, and do a season,
Depends on what
I think that would be that at the very least will be a home run.
Because those books it was a symphony of these different characters being woven in and out. They all had their own purpose. They all stood alone. They were their own people, and they all came together, clashed, and then reassembled into this great piece. It was an orchestra that everything fell together and made a beautiful song.
Yeah, it's a good.
Beautiful, horrific, fucked up song. But
Yeah,
it's won awards. The hype is real. It's that good.
it is good.
And all they have to do is stick close enough and not fuck it up, and they're going to have a good show.
Well, it's just going to be a difficult thing to navigate, dude.
It is.
It's going to be hard to navigate and make it good still, and not. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's just going to be a tough one. I think I would rather be the guy to make Berserker than I would be to make the guy making. Because Berserker, you can go all out, and you can really get brutal with that because you're just. It's
animated.
at least, I mean, you're killing
And you got Keanu Reeves.
grown men. Like, you're not killing children. The killing kids it's like in the title. You know what I mean? Something is killing the children. And
And they could
Some
really
people,
play up the grief card too, just like kind of
oh,
Walking
they'll
Dead
definitely
style.
do that. Oh,
I mean,
fuck.
they need to, but as
Well, to
far as
keep
the
it real,
killing,
to keep it real, you know,
Mhm.
and just like, and that's a, you know, and that is a good, like, that's really gonna fuck with people as far as like, you know, that does up it because like when I watched that It movie, for example, and that kid got munched, I like didn't even want to watch. I'm like, oh Jesus, like I had to like look away, and that's like very rare that I gotta do that. But when it comes to kids, you know, that really fucks with me when I see a kid get hurt or whatever. I really hate that. Like it bothers me. So I could see a show like this really doing well because of that, because it will make you feel something. And that any good story will do that. Like if you're really feeling intense emotions just from seeing this show or seeing what it had in the show, or
yeah,
a really heart-wrenching scene or a really happy scene that you just like tear up in your lap, like, you know what I mean? Like anything that makes you feel actual feelings, that's when you know you have a good story on your hands. And something like The Walking Dead was like that. You know what I mean? It's like, and like you said earlier in the episode, it's not necessarily it's like what's happening in the story, that's intriguing for sure, but having a diverse cast of characters that are all very different and written well is what makes that really really work. And this book in particular is built for that, um in a big way, because isn't there, yeah, like you said, there's that cop, and then so if you do the season long enough and you have that guy in enough episodes, right? And then he gets his throat slit and fuck, doesn't he die?
yeah.
Yeah, so
just-
that is gonna be an intense episode. People are gonna be like, "Oh, what the fuck," and make it brutal.
He did have a few scenes beforehand. He was kind of, because the sheriff was kind of needed to kind of be political and not fuck with the House of Slaughter, because they were calling.
Oh,
it
yeah,
like-
they kept-
it was Aaron. We found out later, but calling, intimidating, controlling the situation, trying to control the story, and was like, "Yeah, I'll make your life hell, or you can listen to me." And like knew shit about them that no one should know, so it was very intimidating from the get go.
Yeah, because they're a shadow organization. It's like the Men in Black or so, like, you know,
Yes,
like,
secret co,
yeah, it's
CIA
like,
kind of shit.
we don't exist, bitch. How do you think we can't fuck you up?
They said, the biggest mystery in the world is that they are monsters. The second biggest secret is that they are a group of people who hunt those monsters. And that is the Order of St. George, which is based off of a real Christian myth. There's
You were gonna say
the
that.
dragon of St. George. There was this dragon that was attacking the town, looting it, and it demanded tribute. And after they ran out of money and supplies and material objects to give to the dragon, they started sacrificing people. In the comic, it said that the dragon wanted children, and that children were being sacrificed to the dragon. That was one change that was different from Wikipedia. St. George came in, tamed the dragon, allowed the dragon to be controlled by him, and then once the threat was removed, killed the dragon. And then there was a church built for him, which is, believe there is a real church of St. George, and that's where that myth comes from.
Interesting.
And in the comic, they said this was real.
So
This is where the Order of St. George, and this is where their purpose started.
So after that happened, he decided to create, start teaching other people.
And this is where
The order was built
and
around
the
that.
same thing happens that, they have their totem, the little octi, the little pet octopus that she has.
Man, that's so dope. I love when stories get tied into actual, like actual event, like you know what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I
it's-
love when they do that
They pull from
and then
real
like
life stuff.
and then expand it upon it. That's so dope.
So, and the totem is part of how they capture that.
I
that
wanted to talk
monster.
about that. I wanted to talk about that.
The whole there's so many rituals
So
and
in the-
culture. This story is kind of weaving in and out, and it's great.
Okay, so in the beginning, I'm a little okay because I haven't read it in a while, but I remember that's how she got brought into the order. Right? Was she killed the monster that killed her family or whatever? Right?
She
But
fought
also-
back, and
Oh, she didn't kill it. She weakened it when she fought back.
she almost killed it, and
then
then
they trapped it in
so
her.
then Jessica Slaughter came in, who's kind of like the motherly figure of the story.
her mentor.
Yeah. Comes in, is like, holy shit, and like then saves her and brings her in.
Yeah,
And
she's
the order's
actually-
pissed off about it. This does not make people happy.
So she's like the Qui-Gon Jinn of
Yes.
House of Slaughter. She's like, I'm gonna train her anyway. Like, isn't it go down like that?
Kind of. Well, like they're like, well, you brought her in, so now she has to go through the ritual, and this kind of happens in the second, like the issue 16 through 20, or like the fourth trade paperback. She goes through her initiation process, and she's like, you have to go through this right away. You brought in this stray. They're calling her like a stray. You brought her in. Now she has to go through this ritual, and they're like, this is going to kill her. She's never been trained. She doesn't know anything about this.
Which is what
'cause this
they're
whole-
hoping for.
Everybody, some of them are, and they all expect her because this whole culture, everyone's been groomed for this position to be in the House of Slaughter, and she doesn't. She's like raw off the streets, and she took on this monster. And then and then in the process, they have to kind of bring that monster out of the form. Because, all right, let's wait up.
Yeah, you're going a little quick.
So when Jessica comes in, Erica has almost killed the monster. She performs the ritual to take the monster and entrance it into the totem, into the octopus.
Which is just one of her little stuffed
her
animals.
stuffed animals, which is something she loved before, which was an important part.
Okay, so a totem, this is what I was going to ask. So a totem can be any object, but you have to have connection to that object for it to work.
In
It
this
can't-
storyline,
it can't just be
yes.
like it can't just be a fucking spoon.
Oh, here's this beer can.
Right.
You know,
can't-
it's like, oh,
it's
this
got to
is,
be something that you're emotionally attached to, and
this
then
is the teddy bear that I've had since I've been a kid.
so you. But maybe I'm thinking too much, but like, so a lot of kids, they talk to their stuffed animals and shit. So is that kind of the same thing as like they believe in some, like, so they believe.
But other people can hear this animal too when it talks. This is the demon inside. So that's not.
That only.
So eventually, yes. So
No,
at
I'm just
first-
saying the requirements for a totem before you can use it as a totem.
Well, they never really mentioned it. They only said that it had to be like something that she was attached to.
But you can't
And
fully
then-
like kill one of these things. You have to trap it, or it's only after there's.
Well, they can
Or
kill
no,
them
you
too.
can up to a certain point, but then after.
No, that's a good point. That is something they didn't really answer as far as when do
Well,
they
I
just
think they
straight up
said-
kill them or when do they
I
entrance them?
think they said you can kill them as long as you get there soon enough. Like, but after a certain point, they can't be killed, and then you have to like trap them because they get stronger. I think the more they kill, and also the more people that believe.
Okay, so I think the other part of it is the House of Slaughter and the Order doesn't always care about saving lives. They care about covering up the story. So I think what the rule is, and they haven't really spoken this, but I'm kind of piecing it together as you're asking, is they either have to kill the monster, cover up the story, and then kill the kids that were just saved, or when they make a totem, they have to become part or initiated into the house.
Because then you become the guardian of that totem.
You've been adopted into it.
Because nobody else can hold that totem, right? It has to be you.
Mm-hmm. And we're starting to see what can happen in those situations in the newest run too, by the way.
Is if somebody doesn't have their totem.
Yeah, that like Erica. Gets separated
and
from it.
also it is interesting because she carries that with her, and then it talks to her,
and it's
tries to
adversarial too.
but also they have like a working relationship. Like she will ask it for information, it'll give it, but
Like-
also it's like, I hope you fucking die, bitch.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Like I'm gonna fucking rip your head off.
I'm gonna
someday.
swim in your ashes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like so it's an interesting.
it really is.
All of it is really good.
And everyone in the House of Slaughter, all the other ones, have their own totems too.
Mm-hmm.
So this is all part of it. And in part of the initiation, which is where I started jumping ahead, they have to let that monster out, and then it kind of jumps into into their own head, and they have to see if they can survive that.
Oh yeah, you got to
situation.
battle it,
And when that happens,
and like so to trap it, you have to
release it, and
you
then
have to like
harness it and
harness, like restrain it with your mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And your willpower has to be stronger than
So it's like she had to beat it physically, and then she had to beat it mentally.
because you have to prove that you're able to keep it trapped in the totem, right?
And that's only first part of the initiation into the house. But
That's
when-
crazy. That's the first part of the initiation is you have to. They're like, you need to, because that was part of trapping it, right? Is her wrestling with it mentally.
Or I mean,
And like she's part of the ritual to trap it, and that's why you have to keep your totem.
and she didn't trap it originally, and then
Like you're bound to it, I bet.
and then eventually after the ritual, because then the guy who was performing it was freaked out by the level of how bad this monster was, and it's like, this girl is gonna die. You didn't tell me we were sending this girl to her death,
Right.
because it's like there's no way she could live.
And then
it,
she walks
did.
out of there like a badass, and
Like,
everybody's
all right,
like,
what's
"What
all
the
right?
fuck?"
What's next?
They're
They're
like-
all getting day drunk
Yeah.
and getting fucked up because they're like, we just sent this girl to the.
They're celebrating.
And the Cecilia, the white mask, who's like, well, I brought Aaron to this. I brought you here to teach you a lesson here today. Why you don't bring in strays? And then she comes out and be like, hi,
Yeah.
what's next?
Yeah, that was easy
right.
work. She is a badass, and it's interesting. That's one of the best parts. It's like everybody loves an underdog story, man. Like seriously, who doesn't love an underdog? And like that's what she is like somebody who wasn't groomed. She didn't come in with a silver spoon in her mouth. She took on a monster without any prior knowledge that they even existed. So she's got that dog in her, bro. Like she's willing to fight to the death, and that's why she's able to take on shit and be one of those black masks and be, like you said, the Swiss Army knife. They're a fucking team within themselves. Like you have those other ones. Would you say the white masks? And they're like the group.
They're like a pack of wolves.
They're like the pack hunters, but they generally take on the bigger monsters, right?
I think just whatever they're assigned to, because she's the last of the black masks. And one thing interesting happened at the end of the first 15. Now that we're
She's the last.
whoa, air horn.
That was the klaxon foghorn.
Oh, I can't hit the right button. Spoiler.
There
So
you go.
like at the end of the 15th issue, she's speaking with the dragon. The dragon is like the main kind of boss guy that rules that house. And he's like, I want you to come and sit on the council and lead the black masks and start to be this change. You say you say there's these problems. Be the change
Erica.
to Erica to be the change and come into the council and lead from the inside. And she's like, no, fuck you. I'm doing my own thing. It's like, you want to stop me, come kill me, or get out of my way.
Yeah, because she's solo. She rides alone.
Yeah.
And that's pretty cool. It is like and she learned that kind of from the chick that brought her in. Is like she doesn't really like to live by their rules. She's a part of their organization, but she still is on her own. She's not.
And in that same scene, Jessica.
Which is why people hate her, by the way. Why they hate her for her perceived lesser status as somebody who was adopted in as opposed to being chosen.
And then she keeps getting away with it because she's such a badass.
And yeah, she gets to do things that maybe other people wouldn't get away with.
Mm-hmm.
and talk to people above her in a disrespectful way, and like you said, get away with things because she is so effective and such a bad motherfucker. They would be stupid to do anything to her. Or
And as far as
like-
like a relatability to the audience, she's doing it for the right reasons. As far as the hero aspect, she's doing it to save the children because
that's what's cool
something
about
is
her
killing
too.
the children.
And she is so, she has that very empathetic side to her, where she can put herself
and
in the shoes of the kids that she's saving.
so I've worked at like a day treatment center for a short while, kind of, and the way she speaks to children is spot on to how therapy works in those kind of situations, dealing with kids who are in trauma, and just how honest she is. Sometimes she doesn't say everything, but how she approaches it is very human. Again, and just how all these characters felt real, felt authentic, and not one-dimensional. They were more than just
It seems like that
somebody on a piece of drawing on a piece of paper.
It seems like that stands out to you more than anything.
Yeah.
It's like that's really what draws you in. It's obviously
the grief, like
it's obviously the content of what's happening, but I think the characters and like you say, the how unique each person is and like how well thought out each character is, and I think like it just really, you keep bringing that up, and like it's not a bad thing. I'm just saying I think that's really what sells it for you, like for you particularly.
well, because
and I
it's
think
more
that-
than it's the nature of telling a story.
I don't think you're alone in that, though. I think that's what will sell this as a show. And that's like we said this, I mean, we're coming full circle here. But shit like The Walking Dead, and it's like, it was never the zombies that sold that show. Well, you can go watch a million zombie movies to your fucking heart's content. That's not really what sells that. It's the individuals in the story that make it so good.
Yeah.
So, and they're gonna really have to, they would be dumb to jump too quickly in picking their cast for this show. Especially for someone like Erica, that's gonna be, I mean, you really got to take your time casting her and find the perfect person.
Yeah. Hopefully they just don't pick all their buddies and
Yeah, they just get, or well, what I mean, just some chick that they think people want to see.
we don't know when this is coming to Netflix. It's just like the only announcement is that
They're talking about it.
they've announced a different director duo.
Oh, so they changed the.
This was just
directors?
this was like 3 weeks ago, February 23rd. Netflix re-ups overall deal with Dark creators, the show Dark, duo Broad James. This is a terrible headline. I'm not even going to read it. But yeah, they did the drama. It's on Netflix. 1899. That's the one's kind of Bermuda Triangle esque. I might need to give it another chance. And then the other one I've never watched before, Dark. It's in With Echoes of Dark. Something is killing the children is ripe material for Freezy and partner Bro Odar. The two last names of these directors that I'm not even going to try and say. So that's it. That's the only news is that's coming. So we don't know when they're gonna kind of push that out, or they're just gonna keep kind of drag it along. But it takes a long time to film that. It's no simple process. It's no simple production.
A show like this isn't going to be either.
No, that's what I'm saying.
You know,
That's the show. Yeah, it's not gonna
it's
be.
not going to be. You're going to have. This is going to be a really aesthetically driven show. So, this show will be dark. I picture it being very dark. I picture.
I mean, you could easily, a lot of it's going to be, if you're true to the comic, it's going to be, there's going to have a lot of woods. You're going to have, the set is probably not going to be that expensive. You could probably do pretty well. There's a school gym outside wooded
the
area.
First season, but then when you get into the orders, like building or whatever the fuck they're in there.
Yeah, in Chicago.
Like once you get into that, it could start to get a little more expensive because the clothes that they're wearing and shit are really extravagant, some of it, you know what I mean? So you're going to have...
But as far as movie production goes, all of that is relatively inexpensive. If you know the right people.
And the first season's probably going to be a little more expensive than like a later
the monsters,
because the monsters are where your budget really
exactly. So that's where, and then also
the
kind
beauty
of your
of
props
it is,
and the blood and how much
beauty of that is like you have the go-to excuse that grown-ups can't see them, so you can get away with having invisible scenes where you don't have to.
You are not wrong.
You don't have to have the monster.
And that can be super dramatic.
Written into the story. We're not being cheap. This is just how it, you know what I mean?
Well, no, they should totally use that as dramatic effect. That's why
you got to balance that though.
Yeah.
You got to balance that. You use that part that where the adults can't see it a lot early. But then like, you know how it is. It's like you save seeing the monster until a little later, like you just show them a little bit, and then you, by the time,
like the movie, the old movie, The Thing.
Yeah,
just they didn't.
You rely on
the suspense of the slow and just long enough, but not, and then.
But then you see it at the end in all its glory, and a lot of times that falls flat on its face because then the monster looks fucking stupid, or whatever, and you're like, this is what we waited for. And so sometimes that doesn't work, but I don't think that'll happen with this because the monster.
They just have to find that original prop from the Alien movie, the Queen Alien with the garbage bags.
Yeah.
And then.
Garbage bags.
Yeah, they made. That was in the movies we love, or the movies that made us, documentary on Netflix.
Oh, yeah.
The original Mother Queen Alien, or some of the original Alien from the Aliens movies, was like made out of garbage bags and just, a big kind of marionette puppet that was just all kind of, thrown together by the prop department with some dude with Dave in the insides.
Okay, isn't that crazy? It's like, I think a lot of these movies and shit these days, they don't think about how far people went with less. Much less, and made some of the most iconic movies in history.
Yeah.
With, like you just said, trash bags. Fucking trash bags. And so something like this, I would be torn because I don't know if I want this show. So think about it. What if they only used minimal CGI and did this kind of show with practical effects?
It's possible,
and that would make the gore and blood more brutal because then it would be like physically there on set. And then you save the CGI for like, adding little details to like, or do you do like a full blown process, like a physical monster, or I don't know. Like
it's gotta be love some combination. It depends on where their strong suits are too, as far as
definitely the a combination.
Team. I think, especially as you said, we can make the monster very invisible.
Yeah, definitely, and you could save money there. You save money doing that, and then when you go to the big scary shot where you actually see the monster, you can go all out and spend a bunch of money on that.
Spend it all.
But also
spend it all on the money shot.
I bet you they are going to give this show a decent budget. I mean, I feel like they're going to believe pretty heavy in this, and anybody who's paying attention would see the potential in this being the next big show like Game of Thrones or whatever.
Well, and they've been calling it the next, Walking Dead.
Yeah,
for a while.
definitely. That's all I keep thinking about is, and maybe it's the comic book connection, but like you said, it's like the mini characters and shit that make it easy to picture as a show. It's like very character driven, and like you said, literature in comic before. I think
Well,
that's
and
maybe pushing it.
There's even, if we get right down to it, there's its own Jesus archetype in the show too. Sacrificed for our sins at the end.
Who, Aaron?
No, not Aaron.
He does kind of sacrifice himself.
He does.
He knows
too.
he's gonna fucking die.
He kind of says that. Even Erica's like, he's going to kind of kill them. He's like, no, that's not what he's doing.
Yeah, he's going to stall
He's
them.
going to stall, and he knows he's going to die. No, I always get his name.
Which is kind of why I think I liked him so much. Was that he did go out like a gangster, and it kind of seemed like he always got shit, and then he went out in like the bravest way possible, which is pretty dope. I mean, I like him. I think he's a good character.
No, but why the House of Slaughter didn't just kill the whole town at the end?
Weren't they going to?
They were going to, but Tommy.
Which is insane.
Okay, if you haven't read this so far, stop listening. Because this is the biggest spoiler of all. So this is the boy's brother, the brother of one of the original kids that died, sacrifices himself to save the town by admitting that he killed everyone, that he was the murderer.
Oh, he took the fall.
He took the fall for all of those murders so that the order did not have to kill everyone and saved everyone by going to jail for probably the rest of his life.
Because how many people die in that first run of books?
I think it was like 20 or so, but I've heard different numbers of upward to like kind of like 70s, 90s. But
yeah, it's that older guy, and he's kind of like people are kind of suspicious of him anyway, right? Throughout the book,
what older guy?
The guy that takes the fall.
No, he's like a teenager. He's like one of the main teenager. He runs the kind of the Applebee's. They don't call it Applebee's, but he runs that kind of diner there. He's in the cave. He gets stabbed by the crystal so he can see the monsters and kind of help them get out of the cave.
Oh yeah, I remember now.
So he's one of the main characters along that helps progress him. He was like trying to kill Erica at one point in time,
dude.
too.
So this is
so the evolution of this story. This is what I'm talking about when we're talking about the characters.
You're gonna get so much character change, like an evolution in a short time, and that's what's gonna really make it good because like you're gonna get, and then that's if you haven't read the shit and that happens in the show, you're gonna be like, what? Like when he takes the fall, and you're like, this is fucked up.
It's like, but it was like.
It's so fucked up.
Again, like the symphony, he came in right at the to kind of end that song, to end that story, and is fucked up as perfect way. And again, it's like I said, he died for our sins, kind of the Jesus archetype kind of story, the martyr. He and to kind of end that story.
Well, a martyr's more of a somebody for people to rally behind, but
the Dark Knight.
It's like when you sacrifice yourself to give people motivation. Yeah,
the Dark Knight.
The Dark Knight would be a better.
He's a good example.
It's a better martyr.
Or, I mean, that's the same thing.
I get what you're saying, but he sacrificed himself to save everyone, and that's Which, by the way, that just shows how much, like you said, you have to be a monster to take out a monster, and they show that they're monsters in more ways than just being brutal in combat. They're willing to kill the people they were trying, like
they're trying to save.
They're not trying to save them though.
They're trying to cover it up. Yeah.
Their job is to keep this shit from spreading like a plague.
Yeah.
And so that's really, I mean, if you're thinking logically, that is the best way to make sure. But it just shows that they aren't heroes. They're not out here to save anyone. They're just trying to.
But that's what
they are.
Erica.
They're trying to save the human race And they're trying to keep everyone safe
the whole-
by sacrificing.
The ends justifying the
Yes.
the means.
Yep.
You know,
The ends justify the beans.
the beans. I don't know. I think that's a good place to kind of wrap her up.
Me too. I think it'll be interesting to see where all this goes, what happens, and just like to find out when this is all supposed to, because I doubt they must be just starting on a script at this point.
It's got to be easily 2-3 years.
Yeah, it's going to be a while, but it'll be interesting to 2-3 years.
I don't
I
know.
hope not, because by then I might not give a fuck. You know what I mean?
They need to get on the ball and get shit rolling.
I bet it'll be sooner than that.
Hopefully a year and a half, but I don't know. We'll see.
All right. Well, this has been The Comic Zone. Go check out thecomiczone.com. Check us out on YouTube. Please subscribe there. Every episode of the main show is being put on there with full video. So check that out. And also check out Dragon These Balls. We are done covering Dragon Ball for now. We'll get into some more stuff later. Right now we're covering Steins Gate. So go check that out as well. Follow us all on all socials, and I think that's it.
Yep.
Something is Killing the Children. Go read that shit. It's amazing. Hopefully we were cohesive enough to keep you interested.
And there's so much more. We didn't, even with our spoilers, there's more.
Oh,
The
dude.
journey is
Oh,
worth
yeah.
it.
It's definitely worth it. Well hashed out story. Peace out, nerds. Keep it black.